I'm gonna keep talking. We'll see. There it is. All right, friends in the house, you are few but mighty. For the people who are joining online, for the people who are watching this on the YouTube recording, it's packed. It's so full. You can't even find a seat. We'll go back to having exactly 1 hour services when the world calms down again. We begin with these words for chalice lighting, this by Kenneth Patton. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. This is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. This is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. This is a house of art, adorning its celebrations with melodies and handiworks. This is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and present in visions of growth, of progress. This house is a cradle for our dreams and the workshop of our common endeavor. Our annual State of the Congregation meeting is just informational. There's no business, there's no emergency. Robin was just telling me she was talking to her daughter who asked her, "Mom, can you not just say it's all good and move on?" That is an important part of the message. But this meeting also is a chance to hear from all the different folks on staff about the things that are going on behind the scenes, things that you may not have visibility to. So we'll hear today first from Robin, from our congregation president, then from Scott Montgomery, our community and connection manager, from Dr. Emily Corriath, our music director, Rachel Alba, our religious education director, and me. And that's that. We'll follow up later this week, sending out the reports to the congregation. I often tell the board that the point of communication is transparency. And transparency does not mean, I say this in the new member classes too, that every single person in the church is supposed to be interested in everything that's going on. Transparency means that we're striving to make available and accessible to you what's happening. So in that spirit and frame, it's good to spend the afternoon with y'all. I mean, we won't spend the whole afternoon together. It's good to spend the start of the afternoon with y'all.
Good afternoon. I'm Robin Miller. I'm the current president of the Board of Trustees, and I'm truly honored to serve with my fellow board members, Caitlin Abbott, Kathy Edwards, past president, who is here right now, Rachel Peterson, Joe Pullman, Pat Walters, and Whitney Wheelis, our president-elect. If you haven't noticed, there's a lot going on in our community, and the majority of the board will be leaving for stewardship training if they haven't already, which is why they're not here. So twice annually, our board gathers for an all-day retreat. At these retreats, we set and refine our strategic priorities for the year. Yesterday, we met for our second retreat of the year. We reviewed what we had accomplished so far, what we still had to work on, and what we would let go of. We also set the priorities for next year and brainstormed action items to support these priorities. So what have we been busy doing this year? So for this year, we have 3 strategic priorities. You can see them up here, and I'll go through them in order. The first is strengthen program church leadership infrastructure. And I have a little Pat Walters birdie in my ear saying, what does that mean? Program church, you gotta define it. So as we grow, our governance structure, our financial structure, and policy structure all have to evolve and grow as well. An example would be that we move from a few leaders, the minister and the board, conceiving, planning, and executing everything within the church, to a cohort of peer leaders and staff leaders who are empowered to conceive, plan, and execute. This year, we have been focusing on the first steps in financial reorganization and encouraging leadership development and empowerment at all levels of church engagement. So what has the board done this year? We've overseen the reorganization of finance, including updating roles and responsibilities for treasurer and finance team under guidance of Carol Teal, our interim treasurer. We have been reestablishing year-round stewardship committee to manage pledge commitments and contributions. We are supporting the creation of updated financial processes, and Loop, the Longmont UU presence, is now managing their own finances. We have board roundtables. We have hosted 2 this fall and have 3 more scheduled in the winter and spring. This allows the board regular communication to the congregation, but it is also a time to bring your ideas and questions in a smaller setting to the board. We've supported Leadership Development Committee with our 3rd annual leadership workshop, Harvest the Power. 11 members participated. This leadership workshop focuses on how we do leadership differently here at UUCB. Kathy Edwards, our past president, is the board liaison and a member of LDC. If you are interested in attending, be on the lookout for more information for this workshop in the spring to happen in the fall. But mostly out of all of this, I'm really excited to see that our community is empowered to step up when they see a need, both in our community and in ones outside of UUCB. Some examples are the founding of our Democracy Now! Group this year and the recent workshop, Know Your Rights workshop with Tasha Hill and Mary Jo Highland. Cindy Schlosser's organization and execution of the Gift Christmas Tree in support of the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network. Multiple calls to action to our community in the Messenger and Google group. One that Karen Churnside just put out almost made me cry when I walked in this morning and saw the amount of donations gathered for this community. It was unbelievable. Climate Action Ministry, sharing ways you can make a difference for the environment. And Kate Weinstein for organizing guests at our table. These people are all empowered, and that's what we need to continue to see going forward as our church grows. Our second strategic priority is build a community of joy, resilience, and resistance rooted in relationship. This goal is promoting a culture of welcome, inclusivity, and belonging for all. We invite every person who walks through the door into real relationship, grounding in share core values, joyful, honest wholeness, and restorative spiritual experience. We seek to understand and celebrate diverse identities and experiences of each person. Yesterday at the board retreat, we talked about how the board can bring the joy. Well, my jacket is an attempt to bring some joy. So large yellow flowers are the new black. Board representation at new member classes. There's a new member class every month, and the board has had representation at each one. We personally see who's joining our community and hear what brought them to us, and then those representatives bring that back to the board and say, hey, this is how our community is growing, and these are the people who are coming into it. We are developing a culture of gratitude at UUCB. And I want to thank the whole community here for being flexible, patient, and generous with their time and talents during our expansion. It is a lot. So what have we done? The Community Appreciations launched in the weekly Messenger at the end of September. It has appeared every Friday since. This is a great opportunity for all of you to submit an appreciation. We instituted monthly thank you cards for signing and sending at board meetings. To date, the board has sent 70 handwritten thank yous signed by all members of the board. If any one of you has someone you want to receive a thank you card from the board, contact a board member and tell them who you want to get a card, and we'll make it happen. The board also hosted an expansion project team gratitude and dandelion awards on November 22nd. For all current and former members and their significant others of the expansion teams. About 35 people attended, and it was a lot of fun and good to just let our hair down and have some good food and just reminisce about how far we've come, which they have, and how much work they've put in, and we are truly appreciative of that. And last but not least, we will support the building expansion project, and this has essentially taken Huge amounts of time, and a lot more time than the board anticipated, and a lot more time than most members of both the building development team and the capital campaign team have even imagined. But we want to oversee building and capital campaigns and support them in achieving their respective goals. Assure strong communication throughout the process between the committees, the board, and the congregation. So this year, the board has continued an additional monthly board meeting that deals specifically with the expansion project. We have refined the supplemental board meeting format. President-elect Whitney Wheelis took over the liaison duties to the building design team and the interiors and aesthetics team. Joe Pullman has continued as liaison to the Capital Campaign Committee. So that means they attend a lot more than their 2 and 3 monthly meetings in addition to just the board meetings. Called and ran a successful congregational meeting on a vote to proceed with the Capital Campaign on November 9th. This included 4 informational forums prior to the unanimous yes vote. Yay! Approved the schematic design by Rodwin Architecture to begin the detailed design of the building expansion, supported the building design team in expanding and starting up interior and aesthetics team led by Becky Martin. Approved a water solution plan and submitted our cistern design to the state for approval. Participated in the quiet phase of the Capital Campaign. And you are hearing it here first. We are standing up a physical space team to plan for the demolition and an alternative meeting space. So with the new construction on the west side of the building here, we will be out of the sky and the earth rooms for the first 3 to 5 months of construction. While the firewall, and there's going to be a wall that goes right down here through, while the firewall is being built. And for this physical space team, we will need a logistically minded project manager to lead the team. So if that is you, please let me know. And a more detailed communication about this will go out in the next few days. We are convening a communications team across the various expansion projects to communicate with the congregation as we progress. You get timely updates. And 5 of 7 board members will be stewards in the upcoming combined capital and annual campaign. And these are all the highlights of what the board has been doing. So know that we are busy and working for you and very excited and energized about this. All right, that's the end of the board stuff. Now, if you could move the slide, I'm going to give a brief financial update. I just heard Janet say, uh-oh. There we go. So high-level finances. We are in the black. Yay! Or maybe the large yellow flower, because that's the new black. Despite unbudgeted well testing expense, we have 4 months operating expenses in the bank, and 3 months is the normal for nonprofits, so we are above that. Pledging and giving is abundant and deeply appreciated, and our Share Our Plate donations so far from September to December have totaled $11,136. So all is good. Great. And I thank you all for your attention. Yeah.
Hi. I am Scott Montgomery, and I'm midway through my 2nd year in the role of Community and Connection Manager. And in my 2nd year, I'm looking forward to expanding this role and improving the processes that support the newcomer experience and the experience of our active friends and members as well. We continue to welcome, as you may have noticed this morning, we continue to welcome many new and returning visitors at both Sunday services. In fact, over the past 6 months, we've averaged 31 first-time visitors and 27 returning visitors each month. Our visitor experience begins with a warm first impression at the welcome table, thanks to Barb and Fred at the 11 o'clock service. And we have been emphasizing radical welcome, this idea of radical welcome, at our twice a year usher and greeter trainings and connector trainings. And that is translating into more of our members feeling empowered to act as these unofficial ambassadors during coffee hour by introducing themselves to newcomers and modeling an inclusive community. We continue to offer our newcomer Q&A, Exploring Yourself at UUCB, the first Sunday of every month after both services in the listening room. But we've increased the frequency of our more in-depth newcomer program, Finding Yourself at UUCB, from every other month, as we did last year, to monthly. And we have had roughly 9 attendees, an average of 9 attendees each month since September. And last year, we piloted a Friday night version of our Finding Yourself at UUCB to better accommodate those who attend the 9 a.m. service or have children. Friday nights are often an easier time than Sunday at lunchtime, and that has been a success. So we're holding 6 of those this year. Let's see. And about 40% of those who attended our Finding Yourself programs last year went on to sign the book, and many others are active friends. So our membership continues to grow. 54 people have signed the book in the last calendar year, bringing our membership total to 305. In addition, we have 70 active friends, defined as those who attend services regularly or are engaged with a group or team but have not signed the book. We improved our Connect cards to collect better information from visitors, and some of that information includes addresses, specific interests, names and ages of RE-aged children, and this is so that we can better connect newcomers to groups, programs, and information that is relevant to them. We also created an automated series of emails that go out to visitors over a month-long period, once a week when they sign up for our newsletter. And these emails include personal messages from Reverend David, from Rachel, from me, and also they share invitations into community at UUCB. So as you may have noticed, it's busy around here. Total in-person attendance this fall as compared to last has increased by a little more than 14%. The actual numbers behind that is 161 to 185 each Sunday. And separated out by service, the 9 a.m. service has increased by about 17%, from 48 to 56. Today we had 70. The 11 a.m. service has increased about 14%, from 121 to 138. So our Earth Room capacity is 190 seats, and as a general rule of thumb, about 20% of those seats should be open and available. And that translates into a comfortable capacity of 152 in this room. So we have exceeded that capacity 5 different Sundays this fall, including all 3 of the combined all ages services. So we continue to enthusiastically support our groups and teams, including our newest additions, the LGBTAQ+ Connection, and the Musician Circle, and UU Defending Democracy. We continue to refine our twice-annual Connectors training for group and team leads, and our monthly Connectors check-in email that provides helpful tips important updates, best practices, and save the dates to those team leaders so they can keep their groups informed and in the know about important church happenings. And echoing the board's emphasis on gratitude, we brought back a longtime member recognition ceremony last spring, and we're working with the board, as Robin mentioned, to show our appreciation to those who give their time and talents to the benefit of UUCB, as can be seen in the weekly appreciation section of the Messenger. And it's worth noting that UUCB was mentioned twice last year in the UUA World magazine, our denominational magazine, for community and connection related initiatives that began before my arrival, but those include removing member status on name tags to level the playing field, and our 4x4 dinners, which provide an opportunity for connection between newcomers and members. We face the happy challenge of knitting together a growing congregation, and to that end, we're working to increase the number of our 4x4 or newly named UU Dine Around dinners. We'd like to offer a virtual coffee hour to better connect with those who join us online and watch our service via YouTube on Sundays. And we continue to look for ways to connect more deeply with all members of the community. We are so lucky to be part of a community of active co-creators in ways big and small. From those who see a need and start a new group or plan programming, to those who usher and greet on Sunday. As you may know, I am sending around a clipboard. If you are so inclined to sign up for an usher date, would be much appreciated. We also appreciate those who bring in food for coffee hour and those who help set up the coffee hour and load the dishwasher after. It's a place where you need neither seniority nor permission to join in. Co-creating belongs to all of us. I've had first-time visitors jump in to clean dishes after community night or make valuable suggestions during the newcomer programs. I want to close with a request, especially to those of you who may be tiptoeing around some deeper engagement but aren't sure where to begin. Please use me as a resource. Grab me during coffee hour, send me an email. My job title says it all. I'm here to build community and facilitate connection, so please reach out, or better yet, join the membership and connection team and bring your ideas. Thank you.
So she was asking how many people watch online. I told us as a team before we started that we weren't taking questions during this session, but this is an exciting question. So what we typically see is people watching along on the live stream at the same time. We'll see between 15 to the low 20s of people who are like watching it as it's unfolding, typically. What's interesting though is like Bob's coming out with more data, in the week and weeks that follow, there's a whole bunch more people who are then watching the recording on Sunday night, on Monday, Tuesday, and the weeks that follow. And then sometimes also I'll clip out a sermon or a section or something like that, and some of those get a lot more traction. Yeah. Bob?
Today, the maximum number was 48.
Wow.
Note in the chat box, we'd have a new record for a distance listener or viewer, and that was Zurich, Switzerland.
Wow. From Switzerland.
It was built at Ireland.
That's remarkable.
Months ago.
Mm.
And such.
Awesome.
The particular YouTube statistic for today said that 110, there are some people that just showed up for a few seconds or stuff. But consistently, as I was watching it, it was 45 to 50. I never saw 50, but I did see 48.
Wow. going to turn over to Emily. If you'll save other questions to the very end, which is only 3 reports from now.
All right. I have a special place in my heart for the State of the Congregation meeting because on my very first day 2 years ago, it was the State of the Congregation meeting. So I showed up on my very first day and I was like, so ta-da! So February 4th will mark my 2-year anniversary at UUCB. And in just 2 years of part-time employment, we have made amazing strides in strengthening the musical culture in our community. We are blessed with an abundance of talented musicians who are willing to share their gifts with us and who are open to working together in new and different ways. You saw evidence of that this morning with Melinda and in her very first go-around as lead singer of the Chancel Cats. Robin had to step aside since she's serving as board president, and so that made a space for other people to step into that role. So it's really exciting how that happens. As a community, you are enthusiastic about supporting our musicians. You are also a wholehearted singing congregation, and you are open to lots of new music in services. Collectively, we hold an understanding that the music we share in worship is a way to deepen our spiritual connection or illuminate theological concepts. We don't do Sunday morning concerts that get interrupted by worship. At the beginning of the church year, Reverend David and I collaborated on several strategic objectives for the music program, which were reviewed by the music ministry team and later approved by the board. Here is how we're progressing with those objectives. Objective number 1 was to strengthen planning and logistics. And this is a crucial area of focus as the scope of the program expands. I need to fill the worship calendar further in advance in order to accommodate our growing number of soloists and ensembles. I'm happy to report that this is going well, with most dates covered through the end of the program year and even some summer services already scheduled. Much of this is thanks to the work of music ministry team member Becky Root, who has been deputized to work with our instrumentalists to find suitable dates to fill the worship calendar. I'm also working on improving the regularity of my email communication. And I'm sending weekly reminders to choir members about upcoming events. Music ministry team members have dedicated several days to helping me clear out and organize the music office and to cull and organize our choral library, making better use of the resources that we already own. Objective number 2 is to strengthen the work of those who are already part of the program and to deepen relationships among our musicians. So we begin the church year with a choir kickoff retreat where we can socialize together, share some food, review our shared covenant, and then begin making music together. I continue to ground choir rehearsal as a spiritual practice by lighting a chalice and by sharing opening and closing words. When new musical selections are introduced, I let the choir know which services they are for and how they align with the theme of the service. Guest artists enrich our musical experience and renew our energy. Francisco Ruiz visited us in the winter of 2025 and will return to us in April of this year. We co-hosted Leah Morris with the Boulder Valley Fellowship in the fall of 2025, and many of us will attend workshops led by Matt Meyer when he visits Jefferson Unitarian and First Universalist on February 7th. Based on the enthusiasm and past success of our Music Sunday collaborations with the musicians of the Boulder Valley Fellowship in Lafayette, my colleague there and I decided to attempt 2 Music Sunday services this year, one in the fall and one in the spring. For those of you who don't know, my colleague there is also my spouse. We looked at each other yesterday and went, oh God, we have to start playing Music Sunday again. So with the impending arrival of a new minister there and the unpredictability of a building project here, it is safe to say there will be but one, albeit spectacular, Music Sunday in the spring of 2027. So Music Sunday coming in March and then a 1-year hiatus until the next one. Song leaders from within our congregation have been spreading their wings and leading at the 9 and 11 o'clock services this year and will continue to do so. Objective number 3, create new forms of participation and music making. New this year are our once-a-month Sunday evening song circles, a meditative, heart-centered practice of unaccompanied singing. There's one tonight at 5 o'clock if you want to try it out. This hour-long practice begins with opening words and the lighting of our chalice, includes the practice of joys and sorrows, and ends with closing words. In between, we explore repetitions of our favorite a cappella songs along with some new ones, and participants are encouraged to make up their own harmonies, improvise vocal lines, add body percussion, or enhance the music in any way that they feel moved to do so. The results have been truly staggering at times as singers open their hearts, learn to trust each other and themselves, and free their musical imaginations. It's really awesome. With creative input from members of the music ministry team and based on the success of past events, we have scheduled numerous musical events to take place at community night, such as Christmas caroling in December, a spring talent show which is coming up, and several jam sessions. Becky Root also created and distributed a musical interest form and has been working to pilot a musician's circle for people who might want to make music together for fun, but who might not necessarily want to play in a worship service. This year, we are also beta testing a pop-up choir where people arrive at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning and learn a song to sing together in the 11 o'clock service. Pop-up choir was created for people who are interested in singing in a group, but who are unable to commit to a standing weekly rehearsal. Our initial attempt on December 7th was a great success with 27 singers participating. 2 more pop-up choir Sundays are scheduled for this program year, one in March and one in June. It may be hard to believe, but this is still just the very beginning. There is more musical growth in store for us, and we are still waiting for you to join us. Ta-da!
Hello, I'm Rachel Alba. I have our religious education report. So we have a flourishing religious education program, and while the numbers are great, and I'll share those later, what I'm really especially proud of from this congregation is how you all consistently show up to support our program. So at UUCB, we collectively understand that religious education for children and youth is not a side project along with being a church, but that religious education is in fact a central function of a church. We understand that while Sunday morning religious education classes are a part of religious education, children and youth learn about our faith by simply being a part of a congregation. This is summarized by Connie Goodbread, a UU congregational consultant, when she says, "Faith development is all we do. Unitarian Universalism is the faith we teach, and the congregation is the curriculum." One of the biggest ways that I see this congregation understand this is how we show up for our children and youth. This year, we have had 42 different people volunteering in religious education. I know. Okay, so that is 14% of our membership. 19, yeah, good job, everyone. 19 of those people are one-time volunteers, and 23 of those people are people who are volunteering for a program. So they're doing OWL, or they're doing coming of age, or they're doing religious education for like a quarter of the year. And this is the part that I really love. Only 4 of those people are actively parenting right now. So most of those people do not currently have children living in their homes who they are responsible for. This is incredible. For our parents, this means that they get to come into this building and get their spiritual cups filled without having to volunteer in exchange. Robin, I'm so sorry. They get to sit in services while other people in the community support their children. And what's cool for the kids is that what they are learning is that they are valued in this community. not because, and they're valued in general, not because they're related to someone, not because someone's being paid to teach them or care for them, but because, or for their accomplishments, but simply because this community values their presence and wants to be with them. And like to have that experience as a child and then to become an adult that still holds that experience feels really, really big. And as these kids see that the adults that are helping them in religious education are different than the people in Our Whole Lives, are different from the people that are helping at parties and families' nights out, they get to experience that they are part of a larger community that believes they matter. And the adults, lots of different adults, are getting the opportunity to connect and to build relationships with our children and youth. So here's what's been possible this year because of the whole congregation's support of religious education. We were able to start a preschool religious education class during the 9 a.m. service in August. We hired Irene Kirschenbaum as a preschool lead teacher this year, and it was 100% the right decision. We typically have 7 to 9 preschoolers each Sunday in that class. This class starts with Blessings and Concerns ritual, the same stones ritual that we do in this service and at the 9 a.m. service. And it's the same ritual that we do as the cornerstone in all of our religious education classes and in youth group. We are also this year offering Coming of Age for our 10th graders. This program is hosted by UUCB and includes 5 youth from UUCB and 2 youth from the Boulder Valley UU Fellowship. So we are actually hosting and putting that curriculum together and offering it with the support of Boulder Valley, but we're actually doing, more of that legwork, which is also really cool that we can support another congregation who doesn't have as many resources around time for their religious educator and things like that. The 10th graders, instead of doing credo statements, are actually going to put together projects that uniquely express their own spiritualities, and they'll be presenting them to the congregation in ways that are appropriate for what they're presenting in April and May. What I mean by that is that if they're going to play a piece of music on the clarinet, they'll do it during a service. If they're going to present an art project, they'll do that during community night, not necessarily in a service. Does that make sense? Okay. We also offered 4th and 5th grade Our Whole Lives this fall for 10 kids. There were 10 kids in that program, and we're currently offering kindergarten and 1st grade Our Whole Lives for 9 kids. We'll be offering our 8th and 9th grade Our Whole Lives inspired summer camp this summer at the end of May and beginning of June. We've also had several family events, the Back to RE night, Halloween party, which had 33 volunteers who all received those handwritten thank you cards Robin spoke of. 4 of those volunteers were youth, which is also really cool to have our youth volunteering to help younger kids. We've obviously had the breakfast with Santa, and we just had a family's night out on Friday. That was a really beautiful success. We've also started to offer religious education at the 11 a.m. service. We have seen fewer kids than we did at the 9 a.m., but it's a similar amount of attendance at the 11 a.m. that we saw when I started at the 9 a.m. Does that? Yeah. So I imagine that 11 a.m. RE class will grow over the course of next year and the year after, and eventually they'll be about the same size. To give you generally a sense of how our program has grown, this year we have 75 children and youth registered so far, and we see about 18 children, toddlers, infants on any given Sunday. We have about 6 youth each Sunday at youth group, when we have youth group or coming of age. This is up from last year, where our average Sunday attendance was 13 children, and we had 66 children and youth registered. Our program has grown, and I'm so excited about this. We will be using another room that previously Blossom was renting. So sometime in February, likely, is when we'll have access to that room. This room will be designed with height-adjustable tables so that it can be used as a meeting space for small kids as well as for full-sized adults, because we need more meeting space for our adults also. So it will be preschool classroom and adult meeting space. And we're probably going to we're going to apply for an endowment grant in order to get the furniture we'll need to accomplish that. When I envision the future of this program as we grow, I use the metric of looking at religious education registration typically being about 1/3 of total membership. So we're not quite there, but when I think about how this program will likely grow from about 75 kids and youth to something potentially in the future of 125, like when we think about like how big could this congregation get to reasonably, that sort of makes sense. In that vision, we'd want to regularly have 4 classrooms on Sunday mornings, nursery, preschool, upper, lower elementary. And the good news about that is that we actually have the footprint we need in our building already. So I know that when we think about the building project, sometimes it can feel a little bit like, oh, we're only doing things in this side. But the reality is that the footprint we have is more than adequate for what we want and need for the future. It's just a matter of over time taking the rooms back from Blossom, like eventually not having a renter, being able to use those rooms ourselves and using them in thoughtful ways so that we can get what we need out of the space. Yeah. All in all, this program is thriving because of all the ways the congregation supports it. Little ways like taking delight in when Anton and Xavier are running through the aisles during a service. Smiling, I know, right? It's my favorite. Smiling when a child raises their hand to ask a question during the wisdom story. Being okay with a little bit more food on the ground after shared meals. And also being consistent in volunteering to be with our children and youth in formal ways through teaching religious education, sharing what makes you say wow during our Summer of Amazement. We'll be doing that again this year, so if you have something that makes you say wow that you want to share with the kids, start thinking about that now. Helping make food for events, decorating for events, dressing like Santa and Mrs. Claus, and generally being willing to support the kids and the youth in their faith development by being the curriculum, by being the congregation. Thank you.
What a strange moment it is. I spent 2 days in Minneapolis this week, 48 hours, a shade under 48 hours. It feels like Wednesday was months ago. So it is delightful to pivot back away from that world and the intensity of that experience and get to look back over this last 6 months. That's also my way of saying, forgive me for any rough edges in what I'm about to say. You've heard from Robin, from Scott, Rachel, and Emily that we're growing, we're flourishing, we're equipping each other to live our values out loud, to live them in public. And I want to start just by expressing such a deep appreciation for our staff team. Will you join me just in saying thank you? Part of what I just love and appreciate so much about getting to work with these folks is this real clarity about the things that are most important. We're growing as a congregation. We're growing substantially from one year to the next. And that means that so many pieces have to change. Do you remember 12 months ago, we had just added seating over there? We didn't even used to have chairs there. I can't imagine that now. Similarly, I think back to all those kids in the preschool class every week. It's like, what did we do before we had a preschool class? It's hard to remember. In part because they make it look so easy, but also in part because there's this focus on saying, even as we change, what are the most important things about who we are as a community, how we're doing church together? I think often of this line from I think the movie critic Roger Ebert would say it's not what a movie's about, it's how it's about it. The how it's about it is what differentiates one genre from the next. And I think that's true here too. The sense of how do we be about this community in a way that doesn't change even as the shape of it, the form of it, what we're doing does change over time. And there's a beautiful tension in that, but I think always in that, how do we grow without losing focus? We're not growing because we're supposed to be something else. We're not growing because we're chasing some vision of who we used to be in the past. or experiencing some inadequacy about who we are now, or feeling some aspiration to importance in the future. It's not that. I just feel, and I appreciate so deeply that we're flourishing, I think, because of three key things. I want to name those and then talk about a couple of big things on the radar in the coming year. The first key thing that we're doing is living into our mission. Sometimes congregations get stuck in the way that things have always been done. Sometimes they get stuck in serving the needs of the people who are already in the house without considering who in the community wants to be part of this place and doesn't even know that we exist. And what do we need to do? How do we open the door, make on-ramps, pull out an extra chair for those folks? All of that's about living into the mission. Connect bravely, deepen spiritually, embody justice, always love. I say in the newcomer classes that I came here 5 years ago. UU ministers aren't assigned churches and churches aren't assigned ministers, but what drew me here, and I think what drew this congregation to me, is that we wanted to do church in the same way. Our sense of what it is that we're about here together is the same. And for me, it does boil down into that connect bravely, that sense of community and relationship within and among ourselves, but also to other communities beyond these walls. Deepen spiritually in a way that looks different for every person who's in the house, that looks different for the same person at different times in their lives. I've seen congregations get twisted into knots about who's got the right answer, which just isn't what Unitarian Universalism is. But I've still seen it happen, and I love and appreciate the willingness, the intention to be a theologically plural community, even when y'all very much disagree with each other about some of the content of those. That's okay. I love, we talk about this sometimes in planning worship, that y'all are ready and willing to try new things. When I have guests who come here, and when I guest preach elsewhere, there's like a list of questions that you have to sort of case out another congregation before you go there. And I tell people this congregation is ready to try things. Bring a spiritual practice that you love and care about and matters to you, and lead that, and they'll go with you. And they may never want to do it again, but they will try it with you, like they're game. Embody justice. I'm still sort of blown away that this Democracy Defenders group internally, that just started last spring. And the ability of that group to meet the moment and respond to what the world needs. We had, I think, more than 70 people at the Know Your Rights training last week. 80 people. Originally, that was going to be a recorded webinar from the ACLU, feed some people some lunch, and put it up in the Emerson room, which is great. Don't get me wrong. That is a great thing. And then 2 leaders inside the congregation said, let's do this in person. One of them, Mary Jo, with a background in immigration law, the other with a background in civil rights law, and 80 people were there, Tasha and Mary Jo leading. I've said a lot of words already today. I know my business is words, but there are moments like that when I run out of words just to express the gratitude, but also the way that we're stepping into the reality, the work of embodying justice. We're living into this mission which fills a fundamental and unmet need that no other public institution fills. Someone at the board retreat yesterday said, I go to a yoga studio and there are elements of community and there are elements of spiritual practice there. Or I go to, apparently there's a new sauna that's opened up, like public sauna thing in Boulder. Third spaces, right? In any case. But the point she was making was that those spaces, there literally is a price of admission. You belong as long as you pay the fee. That's not how we operate, and it is very, very different not to operate that way. So if the first piece that's making us flourish is living into our mission, the second is that you put relationships at the center. That's changed. In what that means and looks like has changed. For those of you who have been here for, even 5 years, but I'm thinking of 15, 20, 50. It looks different because, in fact, I think maybe even a decade ago, we had already grown too large for everybody to know everybody. And we had transitioned from a single community into a community of communities, where you find your people, your pod, your group within the larger whole, sometimes around a shared identity, age, or stage of life, sometimes around shared work for justice or operations to keep the place going. We're a community of communities. I think that is vitally important to say that and balance it with what I was saying earlier about the effectiveness of the staff team. Because people come to church, I believe this very deeply, people come to church for lots of different reasons. People come because they've experienced a profound loss or a profound uncertainty in the world. People come because they want to hear great music or have an excellent religious education for their child or hear adequate preaching. Oh, thank you. No, that didn't go well. They come for all sorts of reasons is the point, but I think that people stay in congregations all for the same reason. They stay in congregations by being in relationship and connected with others. And so we talk so much as a staff team around how do we make it easier to make those connections? How do we make it easier to connect our longtime folks and our new folks? How do we make it easier for someone to find among like the 30 or 40 groups the one that is their small community? Putting relationships at the center, though, isn't just the work that the staff is doing. This is the work that you are doing. You're doing it every week when you greet someone for the first time and you ask them a question that is trying to make a connection with their heart. When you ask them not, what's your address, but how has your week been? What brought you here? How are you doing today? Those are things that put us together just as ordinary people, that says the thing that we care the most. In fact, whether you're walking in the door for the first time or the 1,000th time, is you, the actual you, the person of you. Along with that work of putting relationships at the center, I just want to say I think that a scrappy, honest welcome matters way more than polished, cold perfection. We could at the potlucks, at the community nights, they could be, some of you do bring masterpieces of cooking to those potlucks, but every single thing could be perfect and cold enough putting in nobody would want to be there. Or we could have what we do, which is a mysterious collection every month of all sorts of things, some of which were picked up at the store on the way here, and there is no judgment about that, and some of which were worked on all day long. That scrappy, honest welcome, people feel that. You feel that in your body. So, why are we flourishing? A third thing, I'm incredibly proud of the work our staff team is doing, but the congregation is not growing just because of your staff team, it's growing because it matters to you that the next person walking through the door finds the same sort of experience that you found, whether that was weeks or decades ago. It's co-creation, it's shared ministry, and we can help enable it, but real belonging only comes from one person to the other, and you're doing that. All right, I want to talk about 3 upcoming things. The first is the building project. Next Sunday at 10 a.m., come and learn about the building project. Thing number 2. Actually, I have more to say about the building project. We expect to break ground this summer. We are, though I will not spoil any of the surprises of next week, very much on track with our fundraising to build the building that we are imagining and planning for all the way along the way. This is not a pipe dream. This is not aspirational. This is not, oh, let's see what happens and then figure out. We're breaking ground next summer. Or maybe slightly longer if the counter, this summer, 26. But I'm not going to give you a date because who knows what the county permitting does and all that stuff. But this is happening. In the first phase of that construction, we'll be out of the building for 3 to 5 months. Now, we won't be out of the whole building. The offices, the RE rooms, the preschool, I think even the kitchen, all of that stuff, the front door, we have access to all of that still. It's just that we won't be able to be in the earth room or the sky room as they're building this firewall so that they can do construction on the other side of it. We'll be out for those first 3 or 5 months and then back in again, maybe in a slightly smaller room here, but we'll be back in for the rest of the building. What that looks like and where we go, the team is going to figure out in the next couple of months. Maybe that's a tent in the parking lot. Maybe that's being in the gym at Eisenhower Elementary. Maybe that's being in another house of worship. There are, in fact, so many good options. The task is just to figure out what works the best for us. Being out of the building is going to be a pain in the butt. It just is. It's going to be a bunch of extra work. It's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be home. If you've ever had the experience of living through renovations in a place that you've lived, it kind of stinks. And then we'll be back again and we'll be okay. Second thing to mention is I had planned next summer to take some time for sabbatical, for rest and renewal for myself. I'm not going to do that while we're in the middle of moving out and moving back in again. But I'm also not going to ever take time for rest and renewal. So I think right now what that will look like is sabbatical next spring. So spring a year from now. So we'll move out, we'll move back in again, we'll get started in our slightly reconfigured space, things will be solid, and then I'll take some time away. When I'm on sabbatical for a few months, we'll have someone else who comes in and is leading the worship. This is not me stepping away and just saying, good luck, everybody. We'll have someone in who's really anchoring the Sunday morning experience. So that's coming, and I'd love to talk more about that with you at some point. But the last thing that I want to talk about, thinking of this year which is coming ahead of us, is that we need to add a third service. You saw it this morning, but it's not just this morning. You heard the numbers from Scott about attendance trends. We're running out of space. And by the time we get to next fall and next winter, the problem will be that much more severe. The opportunity of adding a third service, and we'll do it on a Sunday evening, is both to take some of the pressure off and just free up seats. But alongside that, I also think it is this incredible opportunity to say, what is the kind of experience, what is the format for doing church that we don't offer right now that folks might want to engage with or be a part of? In fact, that people who might never come to church on a Sunday morning because it is so churchy, but nonetheless who share our values, who have a sense of spirituality in the same way that we do, who want to be part of this community, could find their way in. We're just in the early stages of imagining what that could be. I've done a whole lot of talking with other colleagues, UUs and otherwise, who do Sunday evening, other evening church formats. Maybe that's something like dinner church, where everything that's happening is happening over a meal. Maybe that's something that's more like the singing circles that Dr. Emily's been leading this year. Maybe that's a service with a different sort of a format followed by a meal. I don't know, we don't know. We haven't as a staff team yet sat down to put all of these pieces together. But what I do know is the quality of experience and the need that a person has on a Sunday evening is a different kind of a thing than a Sunday morning. On a Sunday morning, you come to church, you've got the whole rest of the day. I mean, less and less of it today, but you've got the whole rest of the day ahead of you as you go on. And a Sunday evening, it's that scary time when the weekend is over and work hasn't started, or the emptiness of the week is stretching ahead of you. For some folks, that can be a profoundly lonely time. For others too, or for those same people, it's also a time in the darkness a lot of the year that opens space for a kind of contemplation or introspection, or a sort of a quietness on the inside that can be harder to cultivate on a Sunday morning. So all of that is to say, we're thinking of this third service both as a way to add more capacity and more seats, but also to have a different kind of experience that we could invite people into being a part of. It works well too because our youth group, the middle and high school youth groups, already meet on Sunday evenings at those times. So we have a built-in need of people in the building and parents coming through and folks who need to be fed anyways. Whatever the shape and configuration of that service is, I feel confident in saying there's going to be a meal that's attached to it, a meal that isn't a potluck, and also that isn't wildly expensively catered in. We have to figure this one out. But definitely there's going to be that meal of coming together, to have the experience together, and then to break bread before the week begins again. I think that's everything I know. I think those are the big things in the coming year. Most importantly, to close, for every person who comes into this house, who comes on a Sunday morning or gathers during a week or watches the live stream, to everyone who needs relief from the whirlwind of life and shelter from the storm, who needs a space to recharge, to be afflicted in your comfort and comforted in your affliction, this is your church. And I am incredibly proud to be your minister. And we're ready for the journey ahead. Thank you so much. It is just about 2:00. If you have questions, let me invite you to come down to the front and we'll hang out for another few minutes and answer them. But it's late in the day. Fred, I will indulge you though.
Just another statistic. Today was 198 people at the 11 o'clock service.
Goodness.
13 of them were in the listening room as well as through the year.
Wow.